Hello, 1010 class, online. Now, I'm going to take today to just introduce myself a little bit, do some general overview for the class, but also just to run through the first class period. It's really fun teaching this class this semester because I have some face-to-face classes, and then I also have the online class. And one of the things that I didn't like when I took online classes is that they were so different from face to face. Discussion boards are great, and doing online readings is great, but you don't get the same engagement and you miss out on that human element. And so I decided as I teach this class, I'm going to try to make it as similar to my face-to-face sections as I can. Now, obviously, we can't have a discussion. I'm not going to have us do anything that's synchronous, so you have to be on the computer at the same time as me. However, I am going to introduce topics and questions and then direct you to discussion boards or direct you to quizzes or assignments. And so that's really going to be the big differentiator between you and the other sections of this class, which means your syllabus is basically going to be the same. Your assignments are basically going to be the same. There will be a little bit of a difference just because there will be an expectation that you engage in online discussion. So where in face-to-face, they do that in class and they get credit for coming. You don't have that same attendance requirement, but a portion of your grade will be based on your engagement within the discussion boards. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. First, let me just introduce myself. My name is Mr. C, and I will be your instructor. I go by Mr. C because I've been teaching in the classroom for 20 years. And in my K through 12 experience, all my students called me Mr. C because Christensen was too long and too hard to spell and things like that. So I really like being referred to as Mr. C. You can always call me Tyler or Mr. Christensen or whatever, but Mr. C is my preferred title. I have an activity that I want to start with you. And so let's see if I can share my screen here. All right, you should be able to see this, and I'll just read the prompt. So in class, I had students do this on a 3x5 card. For you, I'm going to create a discussion prompt. And so we'll read this, and then you can pause the video and head over to the discussion prompt. So it says, think of a teacher or coach that you had in school that made an impact on your life. So what you'll do in the discussion prompt is you'll simply put their name, and then you'll write or describe what kind of impact they had on you. Why did they make such a difference in your life? So go ahead and pause the video now, head on over to the discussion boards and answer that prompt. Welcome back. All right, I'm going to assume that you went and did that, which would be good because you're graded on your participation in these discussion boards. All right, now I'm guessing, and actually, I asked if I could share some of the things from the other class so that you could kind of have this experience. So I have a few of the cards here, and I'm just going to read a few things that some of my other students said. One student talked about their teacher, Mrs. Dodson, and they said, Mrs. Dodson teaches first grade. She's not only one of my favorite teachers of all my years in school, but she's also my mom, which is cool. Her name's Melinda, and she taught me everything I know in life. She taught me academically in first grade by teaching me to read, do math, and many other subjects. She taught me how to be a functioning human in my home life. My mom was a wonderful example to me in every way possible. Oh, I love this so much. This one's not going to be as useful to us because it talks about kind of how she taught in the home. But as I read these next few, I want you to see what themes develop, what things are in common in all these teachers. I always challenge you to be able to summarize what I said in one sentence or two sentences. So let me model that. I read that the teacher here, Mrs. Dodson, the reason she made an impact is because she modeled things and took an interest. Now, when you're the mom, you're going to take a special interest in your student. But that was a cool takeaway that she helped her specifically with those. Let me head on over to a different one. Let me find one that has a little bit less. All right, this student talked about Mrs. Wooten. She said she checked in on me. She had different ways to explain things. She was friendly and welcoming, gave me resources for help, and cared about her students. So this one, again, I think I could summarize this pretty succinctly by just saying she took a personal interest in that student. So she checked in on her, she cared about her. But then she also mentioned that she was engaging. The activities were interesting, and that's important too. Let's do one more. All right, here we have Miss Kaloum, who taught math. Took the time to teach me and make sure we understood, made everyone feel welcome, was easy to talk to, especially if you needed extra help. She was always made time to give you the extra help, and she had fun, but was also strict. That's great. Well, I hope that you're seeing some of the themes. And what I'll have you do is go back to the discussion board, and I want you to type in what are some of the things. So you need to read 2 or 3 of your peers' comments about what they put for their teacher. So read in that discussion thread, and then you'll head over to a different thread that says, what are the themes that developed? And you'll just say, I read 3 or 4. These are the things that all the teachers seem to have in common, teachers of impact. So go ahead and go type in the discussion board for that, and then come back. I need to get elevator music for this part where I'm just waiting for you to get back. Or Jeopardy music, that would be cool. All right, welcome back. Now, I hope that you were able to identify a few cool themes. What happened in class as we discussed this with my face-to-face sections is 2 big things emerged. And I suspect that you'll find these 2 things. One is teachers of impact seem to take a real personal interest in their students, and they know them individually. They care about their students, and that's manifest by taking a little extra time or doing those little extra things to help them get to know their students. So that's item number 1. Item number 2, which didn't come out in the cards that I read, but hopefully you saw this in the comments that you read from your classmates, was that they typically have a real passion for the content that they're teaching. They're really excited. If it's a math teacher, they love math. If it's a geography teacher, they love geography. So the interesting thing about those 2 themes is a lot of research has been done in this area, and it shows that the best teachers indeed have these 2 things in common. Almost all great teachers or teachers of impact really care about their students and really care about the content they're teaching. Now, that's not the only thing that makes a great teacher, but those are 2 big things. And unfortunately, something that's sad in the teaching industry right now is a lot of teachers are quitting. In fact, about 45% of all teachers quit in the first 5 years. That's a huge dropout rate, and it's alarming. It's a little bit scary, but it's not because teachers don't care about the students, and it's not because they lose interest in their topic. Often it's those other factors. We know that teachers are underpaid, underappreciated, overworked. And when you put all those factors together, we get teachers who leave the profession, but sometimes even our best teachers that stay in the profession, they change over time. I was talking with my wife about this particular question of what makes a teacher of impact. And she mentioned that one of her favorite teachers in middle school was just wonderful, took a lot of time to help students individually, really cared about their students. And then her little sister had that same teacher 10 years later. And the little sister said it was one of her least favorite teachers of all time, that he was just grumpy, was short with students, didn't take the time to do things. And what we see is that this teacher was burning out. They were overwhelmed by everything that happens in the classroom. And the teacher probably still cared, but just didn't have the same energy or the patience that maybe they had earlier in their career. So we want to, of course, avoid that. And that's part of the reason we have this class, is to think about what makes a great teacher, but also what's the role of schools? Why do we have schools, and what function do they serve? You'll notice that a lot of the comments about what makes a great teacher didn't have anything directly to do with the content of the class. It might have to do with feeling valued or learning life lessons. And so as we go through this course this year, you're going to see that there are a lot of different reasons we have schools, and we might disagree on some of those reasons. But I want you to be thinking about that from day one, especially some of you younger students who really Right now, you're just in school because it's one of the hoops you have to jump through. You have to finish school to move on to a better job. But there's a lot more to school than that. And so I challenge you to think about that as we continue to go through these topics. I'm going to go to the next slide here. Maybe I have to, if I'm sharing the screen, I have to go to that screen and click on it. So we'll see. I think hopefully that's on the next slide. I'll check this before I post it, but hopefully this is the next slide. This is an exercise we did in class, and I challenged the students to rethink what they do to take notes in class. So there's this system called coding, and I love this because I'm a computer programmer. I do web design, and I love to code. I love to just get in and mess around with the code. But this is a different kind of system. This is specifically about how we use our second brain. And what I mean when I say that is we have our brain that processes information, but we also have a way of categorizing and storing that information so that we can draw on it later. And we have a lot of tools today that help us do that, whether that be a computer or a filing cabinet or your friend. There are ways of taking the information you have right now, putting it somewhere else, and then retrieving it later. Well, I love this because when I was in college, I was in college for 12 years as a full-time student. And I loved my time in college. I think I did a really good job with it. I won some awards. They gave me a bunch of pieces of paper that had initials on it, and it makes me feel important. Um, but when I was in college, I took tons and tons of notes. And then I got done with college and I had these piles of notebooks. And I hadn't read most of them. I hadn't gone back through them. And I wonder if I had just wasted my time in those classes. Well, when we think about using our second brain and coding, this might help you avoid um, keeping track of everything in the universe and then never using it again. So first, capture. This is the whole idea of taking notes. So with capture, that's writing things down or typing it or annotating it. I like to talk to my phone and record audio that way. But if you want to remember something long term, you should capture it in some kind of way. Now, we know from research that the simple process of writing things down actually does help you to focus in that moment, and it helps you to put it into your long term memory. So, simply by writing it down, you're going to retain more than if you didn't, even if you never read those notes again. But there's an even better way. So, first we capture, then we organize. When we organize, that means we put the whatever we captured somewhere else. So if you're doing this on the computer, you're putting a file name on it. So if you created a document, you're labeling it and you're putting maybe keywords so that in the future you can easily find that thing. So you have folders set up on your computer, or if you like paper in real life, you have a filing cabinet and you stick that paper in the filing cabinet and it has a label on it. It's simply having a system for putting your information somewhere. Now, the interesting thing is when we capture and then organize, we're not capturing everything. Like when you go to a class, the expectation, hopefully, isn't that you just write the whole time and just keep as many notes as you can. I know I did that in one class. I had a teacher that was super passionate and knew everything about the topic, and my hand hurt after every class because I wrote so much. But again, I never reread all those notes, and even if I did, it would have been better off just to um, to record the class and just re-listen to it, which, by the way, I'm going to try to do that in this class. So if you need or if you want to hear what other classes talked about, I might be able to arrange that for you. I'm still thinking about the logistics of that. Anyhow, so you don't copy everything. You don't capture everything. A lot of experts say that you should only capture about 1%. So in a 1 hour class, you're only going to take, less than a minute, 30, 45 seconds worth of ideas that you actually capture. Now, I personally think that in academics, we might extend that out a little bit. So in an hour class, maybe you'll have 5 minutes worth of notes or 5 minutes worth of ideas. But that's, you just don't need to capture everything. So let's move to the third letter, the D, for distill, because what happens is you capture it, you put it somewhere, But it becomes way more useful if now you can distill that down to the main idea or the main points. So my challenge to you guys as you go through school is, if you do take notes, have a way of going back over that either in the same session or shortly thereafter, and either highlight the main ideas or write in the margins the main ideas. You should be able to take all those notes that you have and now distill that down to maybe 10% of what that was, so that you have just a few main points. So in a whole class, let's use, for example, the activity we just did talking about teachers of impact. I could say that the main idea is that teachers of impact seem to have two things in common. They care deeply about the individual student, and they care deeply about the content that they're teaching. So now we took an activity that took 15, 20 minutes, and we've distilled it down to 15, 20 seconds, okay? So up to this point, we've got COD, capture, organize, distill. And if that's all you do, then congratulations, you're a hoarder. You probably have piles of notebooks just like I did when I finished college. And great, you've probably learned a lot, but it's this last step that really makes it worthwhile. It's not enough just to collect information, but when we express it to others, then that solidifies that information in our memory. And so it becomes more useful and practical to us, but it also makes the world a better place. Now, how do we express the things that we capture? There's a ton of different ways. If you were in my face-to-face class, you could talk with your group or with the partner next to you and just recapture what, or summarize what we did. If you're at home or if you're with your roommates, you could simply just tell them, hey, this is what I learned today. Now, that's not a normal thing for most people. If you do, way to go. But that might not feel as normal or natural to just grab a roommate and say, hey, here's what I learned in ED 1010 today. Although I liked to talk to my roommates about what I was learning. And after I got married, I love talking to my wife about what I'm learning. So maybe you do have that opportunity. But here's a few other ways that you can express what you've learned. You can repackage it in something that you share with the world. So you might write a blog post, or you might create a podcast episode, or make a YouTube video. Those are all things that I like to do, that do take a little bit of work up front to get it set up and started. But once you become part of the creator economy, once you become a creative that is putting work out into the world, you'll find that you much more quickly gain expertise in that topic. And so this is a really worthwhile idea. So that's our coding activity. In the face-to-face class, the homework was simply to write code on a 3x5 card with these 4 words, and they would have that. Now, if you want to do that, you can do that, or you can put it on a Post-it note, stick it up in your room somewhere. But I'm not going to create a discussion board for this one. It was just a strategy that I wanted to share with you. Let's go ahead and move along. Here's Mr. C by the numbers, and hopefully you'll get this as I forward the slides. I wanted you to know just a little bit about me and where I'm coming from as a teacher. So first, I want you to know that in a normal face-to-face classroom in K-12 or K-6, you're going to spend over 1,000 hours a year with your students. That matters to me because I've spent many years in the classroom with students, and I got to know my students really, really well. And so just know that if you're going to become an elementary school teacher or a middle school or a high school teacher, you're going to have a lot of time with your students, over 1,000 hours in a year. Here's something, just because I want you to know that when I learn, I practice what I preach, and I capture things. I went back over all the blogs that I have and the newspaper articles that I've written and the magazine articles and everything else. And I've published over 1,000 articles in the last 10 years. So I am capturing and then expressing a lot of what I'm learning. I am also a lifelong learner. I like to learn, and I had a goal over the COVID year to read over 200 books. It was 2020. I wanted to read 202 books, and most of my other goals fell by the wayside. That was such a crazy year, but this is one goal that I actually accomplished. So I read about 3 books a week, and I don't read at that same pace now, but I do love to read, and I'll often listen to books on tape. because that's a great way to get through a book as well. And so I just love to learn, just like you guys do. I went back over my resume the other day just to see how many classes I'd actually taught, and it was 52. So I was a little surprised by that, but I've taught 52 different college classes at 4 different universities. So I started teaching at Indiana University and one of their smaller campuses. Then I went to the University of Wisconsin and one of their regional campuses. Then we moved here to Utah, and I taught a few online classes for Dixie State. And then I went back into the elementary classroom for a few years, and now I'm here at SUU. This is my first year. All right, I talked about 1,200 hours in a K-6 classroom. How much time do I get with you? Well, 0 of actual face-to-face, because this is an online class, but of making these videos and actually interacting with you this way, it's going to be under 40 hours, which is the equivalent of 1 week. So I really don't spend a lot of time with you, at least face to face, this year, which means you're going to evaluate me on how organized I am, how well I communicate, how well I've set things up so that you can learn outside of class. And so with every hour that we spend together, you'll probably spend 2 or 3 working on other things. And so my challenge is to support you the best I can in that way. But that's a challenge. And so I'll talk a little bit more in a minute about why that's such a challenge for me. This was just a fun thing. I mentioned I create stuff, whether it's YouTube, podcasting, things like that. And I have a few web series. And so I got IMDb credits for that. And so I counted those up, and I've been on 25 different things that have IMDb credits. So that was kind of fun. 8 is the number of times I've moved since I got my undergraduate degree. So we moved from Utah, where I grew up, to Connecticut and lived in 2 different places in Connecticut. Then we moved to Indiana and lived 2 different places there. Then we moved to Wisconsin and lived 2 different places there. And then we moved here to Cedar City. And hopefully this is where we stay for a long time. So 8 moves since I was in college. Books published 7, and I put an asterisk next to that because I didn't write all 7 of those books. In fact, some of the books I'm most proud of, I didn't write. Let me show you a couple of those. I'll just grab some. All right, so here's one called Battle School. I love this one because it was written by my daughter, Sharon, who wrote this when she was 10 years old. And it was something that was hard and scary for her, but she did it and we got it published, and that was super cool. So I was her editor and book designer and things like that for this book. Likewise, after she did her first book, I started encouraging my elementary school students to write, and I've had several that have finished manuscripts. One of the first ones to get published was Trevor, and he wrote Rat Race, and so he published this, and that was cool. This summer, I published 2 books. One of them took over 1,000 hours to write and to do research. It was just a huge, really tedious process, but I'm really proud of that book. But then at the end of the summer, I created something. It's not really a book, but it's a notebook. It's called the official I'm Writing a Book notebook. And I love this one because I wanted something to help me organize my thoughts as I started writing fiction. I've published several nonfiction books, but not any fiction. And so on this one, I put it into sections where I could put my notes for different chapters, but I also have a section for writing the book blurb, like the description about what the book's about. I have a section for writing the about the author and the acknowledgments. I have a section that's just blank where you get to draw pictures that you might use for cover art and things like that. And so I built this just as a tool for me and for my kids because I thought it would make the book writing process easier. And as opposed to my other book, Teaching on Purpose, that took thousands of hours to write, this one took me 3 hours. But it's still satisfying to write it or create it, submit it, and a week or 2 later get it in the mail. It was really cool. So those are my books. Years I've lived in Cedar City, 6. So we came here 6 years ago from Wisconsin, and we love it here. I live out on the edge of town by the country, and I go on walks with my wife in the evening and our dog. We have chickens, and it's just really great. I have taught 5 years of fifth grade here in Utah. So after we moved here, I stayed home with the kids for the first year and then went and taught in St. George at a charter school and just loved teaching fifth grade. It's a really fun age because the kids are going through a lot of changes. And so I really loved teaching fifth grade. I have 4 kids of my own. My oldest is a junior at Cedar High School. I also have a freshman there at Cedar. Then I have a middle schooler in 6th grade, and then I have an elementary school um, in 3rd grade. And so they keep me really busy with all they're up to. They are my favorite students. I absolutely play favorites when it comes to them. And then just a couple left. Number 1 is my goal as a teacher. I just want to make an impact for a student. And if it's just one student, that's good enough for me. I want to feel like I make a difference. I love being in this profession. I didn't quit after 5 years. I've stuck with it, and there's been highs and lows. But I truly, truly love being a teacher. And then finally, 0. That's been a number of times that I've taught this course. And so I ask that you be patient with me because this is a learning process. 1010 has been offered in the past, but it was rewritten as a general education course. And so we've changed a lot of the curriculum, and it's still a work in progress. So you'll even notice as you go look at the syllabus today, I have the first few weeks really mapped out in detail, but after that, it's not as clear because I'm going to change things and revise things as we go along. So I'll try to stick to the schedule as much as possible, but you'll have to be patient with me, but also understanding that I want to make this as good for you as I can because I do care about you individually. I haven't met you guys yet, so I don't know if I even like you, but I do care about you and I care about how you learn. And so I'm going to take that approach to this class. All right, so that's Mr. C by the numbers. I did this won't be as important for you, but I could go through this really quick. This last activity is something I did in class. And I simply said, I taught my first class at 9 a.m. I asked if they were interested in what I did this morning, just to give you a sense of the life of a teacher, because many of you want to become teachers. And so I just went through my time up till 9 o'clock. And today I played on my phone. So when I woke up, I played a game. Then I read a chapter from a book. Then I worked on an article that I'll publish later today, probably late tonight because I still haven't finished it. I ran 5 miles. I dictated in my journal. I talked to my phone. I listened to 4 podcast episodes, staged some fudge for the county fair. The county fair is happening right now, and my kids wanted to enter stuff in it. I've never done this before, so I said, I'll do it too. So I made a white chocolate fudge with a plum topping to it, and it turned out really great. But this morning I had to put it all together so we could drop it off. So I did that this morning. I got my kids up and got them ready for school. I got a haircut, which isn't too hard for me. Showered and shaved. I packed a lunch and took the kids to school. I answered emails. I activated the Canvas courses. I didn't activate yours this morning. I'm activating it this afternoon because I wanted to get this video on there first. And then I printed all the class photo rolls, and then I created this PowerPoint. So that's what I did just before 9 a.m. Teachers are super busy, and I went through this activity just to show you that I'm juggling a lot of things. There are a lot of responsibilities I have. Very few of these things actually had to do directly with teaching this class, but they're all things that need to get done. And so my time during the day is very valuable. Now that matters for you because while you're online, I still want to be able to talk to you and communicate with you as is needed. And so I do have student hours. Now, almost every morning is full for me. From 9 till noon, I'm either teaching a class or supervising student teachers. So I'm not available in the mornings. Sometimes I'm available Tuesday and Thursday mornings. So if you have an emergency, reach out to me because I might not have student teacher visits those days. But Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I teach all morning. The afternoons after lunch, so I'll eat lunch typically from noon till 1, but from 1 o'clock till 3 o'clock, those are my open student hours. And if you want to talk to me, you can shoot me an email. If you really want to talk on the phone, shoot me an email and send me your phone number and I can give you a call, or you can call me. But And my email, I'm sure it's posted somewhere, but it's just tylerchristiansen11@suu.edu. So shoot me an email if you need to talk, if you have questions or concerns. There'll also be a place to post those things in our Canvas course. So I'll have a discussion board for questions that you might have. And I'll try to cover that as best I can. I want you to feel comfortable in this class. I want it to be as useful for you as possible. You'll notice when you look through the syllabus that there aren't a ton of assignments. There are several readings, but we intentionally made this class so that you could do things that were practical that would help you. So they're really real world type things where you're talking to teachers, where you're putting together case studies. We want this to be as useful for you as possible. So I'm going to make another video where I go through the whole course and go through the syllabus. Let me just get you pointed in the right direction. Now that you've watched this video, you have 5 mini assignments that constitute your first real assignment, which is due a week from Sunday. So I think that's September 11th. You have till September 11th to complete these first 5 things. Now, 3 of them you can knock out in 5 minutes. And so they're really quick. The last 2 will take a bit longer. But I need you to upload a photo to SUU. So I have a true photo directory and I have instructions on how to do that here in Canvas. I need you to read the syllabus so you're familiar with it, so I don't have to make a video going over every little thing, but can hit the big ideas. And I need you, what was the third easy thing? Oh, it's just a getting to know you survey. So it's written as a quiz, not a discussion board, where you will enter in information about yourself and you can ask me some questions about me. So those 3 things you can do today, and I recommend you do them sooner than later, even though they're not due till September 11th. Then the next 2 things is I have 3 readings. You need to read 2 of the 3, and you will post some thoughts on those in a discussion board. So things about why we have schools, why we need schools. And then I'm also going to have you watch Randy Pausch's last lecture. Some of you might have already seen this. It's about a professor that literally gave his last lecture before he died, and what wisdom did he impart to his students. And then I have some reading prompts that go with that, where you get to talk about why you think that's appropriate or not appropriate to give that kind of a lecture in class or in a school where it has nothing to do with academics, but is more moral kind of education or character education. So you have basically a week to watch that. It's about an hour long, and to reflect on it. So nothing very hard these first week and a half, but actually kind of fun stuff. So I'll have those all posted here in Canvas and you can get started on it. I'm really excited to be your teacher this year and to work with you, and we'll stop it with that. All right, bye-bye.